Christ our Savior was born on Christmas Day to save us all from Satan's power when we were gone astray. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Our Heavenly Father, blessed angel came, and unto certain shepherds brought tidings of the same. Now that in Bethlehem was born a Son of God by name. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. Then said the angel, let nothing you affright. This day is born a Savior of a pure virgin bride, to free all those who trust in Him from Satan's power and might. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. Oh, comfort and joy.
In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. Merry Christmas, Heritage. This is one of my favorite times of the year. It's a season marked by celebrations and traditions, from Christmas cookies to Christmas trees, from mistletoe to lights. The bows and boughs and boxes and bulbs all help to make this season great. But there's really only one reason for why this season is special, and I just read about that. In fact, reading the Luke 2 story on Christmas morning is a long-standing Cosson family tradition. It helps us understand and remember the why behind the what. Yet of all of the Cosson family traditions, there's one that tops my list, and it's the Nativity. You see, my mom loved Christmas. She went all out every year because she loved this season. And at the center of our decorations was a white porcelain nativity. It wasn't exceptional, it was actually kind of plain, but it was special. I would often play with those figures and even incorporate G.I. Joe figures to pull security around the baby Jesus, because he was obviously a high-value dignitary, and it made sense to me. And my parents were patient with me about that. But what made that nativity all the more special was that Jesus was separate from the manger. That meant he was removable. So every Christmas, my dad would take baby Jesus and hide him until Christmas morning. Our manger would be empty through the Advent season until Christmas Day, when we would wake up, read the Luke 2 story about the greatest gift ever, and then exchange the gifts that we'd given to one another. Those were very formative years for me. In fact, when Beth and I were married, I complicated our search for a nativity set for our new family. It was much harder to find a removable Jesus than I thought. We looked for a long time, and it was not the smoothest part of our marital journey. But eventually, we found a set that worked, one that she liked, and one where I was able to have a removable Jesus. In fact, this has been a central part of our Christmas traditions every year since that time. We've even added a few figures over a nearly 25-year journey as a couple. But I have to admit, it's gotten harder and harder to hide baby Jesus from my boys the older they've gotten. Yet, so far, I'm still batting 1,000. I don't know what your family Christmas traditions are, but I've already identified that this is one of mine that makes the top of the list. The Nativity and the arrival of Jesus. See, that's special because without Jesus, this is just a feeding trough. But with Jesus, it's a crib for divine royalty. Without Jesus, this is nothing more than a barn or stable. With Him, this becomes the launching point of the greatest rescue mission in all of human history. Without Him, December 25th is just a day. With Him, heaven intersects earth. Immortality takes on mortality. And the spiritual darkness of humanity begins to flicker with light. It reminds me of the words of the prophet Isaiah, who said, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned." For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. He is Emmanuel, God with us. He's not distant. He's not inaccessible. He's not far away. He's near. He is accessible. He's the one who left His place in heaven, emptied Himself, took on the form of a servant, and appeared in human likeness so that our eternal destinies could be changed forever, so that a great light could begin, a great hope could be available. In fact, it was Jesus Himself who some 30 years later would say these words, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." Jesus is the light of life. He's the light of the world. And we are made to reflect Him. We can shine His light in this life as our deepest longings and our hopes are realized in Him. You know, we really don't need a perfect nativity. We need a personal nativity, a spiritual nativity. The word nativity literally means birth. It's the place and condition of one's birth. We often think it only applies to the birth of Jesus, but it really applies to anyone's place and condition of birth. So my nativity is in New Brighton, Pennsylvania. Your nativity is in the place that you were born. But Jesus' nativity was in Bethlehem, in a manger, where a rescue mission began as heaven intersected earth. Probably what we really need to remember this Christmas is that first nativity, that one in Bethlehem, paved the way for all of us, each of us, to experience a spiritual nativity, a spiritual birth. Jesus was born in a manger. He died on a cross, but He emptied a tomb so that we could have life, so that we could have hope where it's lacking. We could be lights in darkness. In some ways, we could be living nativities as we take the light and life of Jesus with us wherever we go, and we allow Him to shine through us to the world. I realize that for many, this Christmas will be marked by fun and joy and laughter and hugs and kisses. But I also realize for some, this has been a tough year, and Christmas is just one more difficult hurdle. And this time will be marked by loneliness and sadness and tears of sorrow. But whatever you're experiencing, wherever you fall on that continuum, I want you to remember that Jesus still came. He is Emmanuel, God with us, and that changes everything for eternity. Of all the Christmas gifts we will give or receive, Jesus is the greatest. And it is my prayer that you and your family will experience the fullness of His love, His hope, His peace, and His joy this Christmas as you experience your own spiritual nativity through Him. Merry Christmas, Heritage. Merry Christmas. Hey, Heritage. One more thing before you go about the nativity. You see here that these are the 3 wise men here. We actually don't know how many wise men there were. We know that there were 3 gifts, but we don't know how many wise men there were. I've got 3 wise men and a servant here. Isn't that interesting? But more importantly, you notice? They're not in the nativity. That's because they weren't there. They weren't there. The Bible tells us that they arrived in Jerusalem after Jesus' birth, and by the time they found him, they gave him the gifts in a house. In a house. Isn't that interesting? It's crazy cool. Now listen, don't get into an argument with family about this at Christmas. It's not that important. I just wanted you to know, because knowing is half the battle.